All right, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to the second part of the Satoshi Roundtable discussion with Muaawiyah Tucker. We had part one where Sheikh Muaawiyah Tucker talked about the first day of this Satoshi Roundtable. There was a very interesting thing that happened during the opening ceremony where Bruce Fenton, who's the organizer of the event, recited Quran and had someone recite Al-Fatiha and also some other verses of the Quran talking about riba. And you should check it out. It's the first part of the conference, and it was really quite nice, and I quite enjoyed recording the podcast episode. So for today, we'll be doing the second part where we'll talk about the rest of the conference, and Muaawiyah Tucker has some other things to share about that. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, brother. So continuing on from the banger of an intro from Sheikh Bruce, then essentially after the usual, individual come up and say thank you for this person, thank you for that person, and blah blah blah. And there was some officials there and so on and so forth. Essentially, what they did was it was a unconference conference, you could say, where everyone can suggest a topic, and then they lead that topic. So some people had suggested topics from before the event, either through message, either Telegram or whatnot. And then they were on the board and they were allocated to certain times. So you had like 8:30 to 9:30, 9:30 to 10:30, and so on, all the way to 3:30. So in the opening, anyone who wanted to talk about something was able to almost like pitch it to everyone else. So this I'm going to be talking about this topic. Anyone to join on? We'll be discussing this and that, and basically trying to encourage people to attend their event. Almost like say bidding him, almost like someone bidding someone to attend their event. That was essentially what that was. And then after that, they literally just got right their topics on a post-it note and just slap it onto the event. It was quite nice the way it was organized. And that was it really. After that, it was just food, mingling, introducing yourself to people, joining in activities, I could say. But that was just the first day. It wasn't much beyond that. That started in the afternoon after the food, and there was like an Arabian Nights themed dinner. So everyone, you could find a table and just have some food. Alhamdulillah, I was able to quickly find where the maxis were at and basically latch onto them like a leech.
Alhamdulillah.
Because as some people are aware, it wasn't only maxis who were there or Bitcoin only people. There were other people who had their own ideas and stuff. But I mean, there weren't top scammers there as far as I'm aware. There weren't scammers there as far as I'm aware. But there were definitely people who were there who were more fluid than just Bitcoin.
Right.
So they had some had their own coins and their own projects, and even some heads of certain projects were decided to turn up. I'm not sure if any of them would want the people to know that they were there, because I was there. So the rules, that's the important point. So I have to make clear the rules. So there was the kind of rules that anything that is discussed at the event, you're free to share the information to the public. But as for who was there and who said these things, then that is private. Mm-hmm. So unless someone said, yeah, you can tell the world that I said this, then unless they said that to you and you got permission, then you can't name names. Although today I was flicking on Twitter and I saw that some people had like shared pictures of themselves at the event, i.e. they doxed themselves that they were there, which I guess from that aspect it makes it easier for me to mention them because they've already mentioned that they were there. So the likes of Adam Back was there.
Okay, I figured.
Yeah, he was there. And there were a few people who were there from before on previous ones, and they were here again. But again, as I haven't seen them specifically on Twitter, then I'll leave that private. That was the first one. So I mean, do you have any questions before we move on to the next day?
Not really, not so far. I mean, I kind of want to get to the good stuff. So it sounds like there were maxis there that you were able to kind of latch on to and kind of stay with your group. So
yeah, I mean, when we say maxis and sticking with the maxis, that kind of stuff, I guess the way I kind of see it is that the purpose of the event was to, without sounding so cheesy, change the world. I know it sounds cheesy, innit? It sounds like, yeah, we got to change the world, man. It's like that.
Sounds like a
But
tech startup.
yeah, it's like Kickstarter, and yeah, buy my shitcoin and we'll do this. But I did hear that day actually. I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna make difference, and this is my coin. I'm gonna issue it. And like, but on a genuine note, the discussions that were had, the refreshing nature of them is that they weren't about me, my idea, what I want, this, that, and the other. Buy this, invest this. These weren't even the words even used. And that was what I loved about it, was that it was discussion about the world, the industry, how to make change, how to help people. So I'm not under any delusion, by the way, that there are many who wish to help people and in the process make lots of money. I mean, that's I mean, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I'm sure people can have genuine desire to help people and also make a bit of peace on the side. That's not a problem. But what I mean by that is there was a genuine hatred, disdain, repulsion to the current state of affairs, and a genuine desire to change it for the better. And I think that's one of the things that, I don't know if you agree with me or not, that's one of the significant, I would say, attributes that separates a maxi from a non-maxi, or from a Bitcoiner from a non-Bitcoiner. Because by the nature of Bitcoin, you can't, I mean, I guess you could speculate a little bit, but the nature of Bitcoin it doesn't allow you to do much with it other than use it as money and appreciate it for what it does. Whereas other coins, all it is just promises and do this and money go up and issue tokens. So that even if they have a good idea, it gets drowned out by hype and pump and dumps.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like that's the thing about Bitcoin is that like there's, you don't get into Bitcoin to make money, especially like in the short term. That's kind of like what all of these altcoins projects promise is like, invest in this altcoin and it will be the next Bitcoin. It'll be the next big thing. You're not too late. You can enter into my shitcoin project and it'll go to the moon. For Bitcoin, it's kind of lousy in that aspect in that, it's just supposed to be used as a money. And yeah, I think that's a lot of shitcoiners kind of miss that aspect.
So basically, what I would say the best way to probably summarize it or to describe it would be to say something like, with Bitcoin, the purpose of it is to replace fiat. Whereas the shitcoin, the purpose of it is to get more fiat. That's probably the best way to describe it, if I was to describe it in a small sentence. Shitcoins make fiat. Bitcoin kill fiat.
Right. It's like it feels like the purpose of shitcoins is to try to keep this fiat hamster wheel going even more. And it's just I just see crypto or altcoins as just another subset of fiat, and I see Bitcoin as this entirely other thing that's actually like the innovation. And it's completely like missed from all of these shitcoin projects. I mean, if your shitcoin project doesn't have it's not even decentralized. It doesn't have censorship resistance. It's not permissionless. Like we've seen this over and over and over again with these pump and dumps. And yet here's Bitcoin just doing its thing, producing a blocks every 10 minutes, and it just keeps on going, being sound money. It keeps being censorship resistant, and all of these shit coins don't have don't have those properties.
Yeah, that is in a nutshell. But let's get into the juice.
Okay. Go ahead.
Let's get into the meat. So the Saturday, so obviously there's three meals a day. There's a breakfast, lunch and dinner, whatever. That's there. They did have, not ironically, interestingly enough, there was a morning meditation session that existed, and there was a Buddhist theme at some points, like where we have meditation or like even some Dalai Lama kind of guy came along to do a meditation session. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not attending that one, but putting that aside, so I'm gonna go through some of the topics just so people get an idea of what was discussed, just so you can see that it wasn't this project wasn't about plotting to dump shitcoins on people. It was about trying to do something useful. So for example, I mentioned, does crypto lead humanity to peace on Earth? That was a discussion topic. Or lost crypto recovery. This one I attended actually. So how do you recover Bitcoin that has been lost by an individual? So there was an individual who, that's his job really, and he was basically talking about the role of passphrases, how you make a passphrase secure, what happens if you lose a passphrase, what's the likelihood of regaining your Bitcoin once the passphrase was or is lost, what kind of information you would help you recover your passphrase, your seed phrase, or your Bitcoin, things like industries, leaders and stuff, what they do to recover passphrase and whatnot, and your passphrase, or what is a passphrase, how you can have your 25th word into your seed word. So as you know, everyone knows you can have your 12 seed words or your 24 words. You can add another word, like your 13th word or your 25th word, to make it even more secure. What happens if you lose that? The kind of hardware you need to kind of brute force it. You know, what kind of information you could use to make the search for your Bitcoin easier. So there was a professional there who that was kind of his job, and how he's been paid, made lots of money to recover people's funds. And then interesting enough, then as it's that round table, everyone's just discussing, the kind of conversation kind of drifted towards how to secure your Bitcoin. So it was titled how to recover it, but then it kind of drifted towards how do you secure it? Mm-hmm. How do you prevent losing your Bitcoin? Especially if you die, how do your inheritors get it? How you can use multi-signature setups to try and help recover Bitcoin. So yeah, it was a very important discussion on that one. But there was some other discussion out there. One was referring to mindfulness in Web3 and crypto. So here you can see that some shitcoiner came and suggested this one, so that was there. This is another one, is 3 generations of adoption. I didn't attend that one, but that sounded an interesting one. So that was all of those discussions. Or there's another one here called "What is next for Bitcoin?" That was another discussion. All of these was happening from 8:30 to 9:30. So you could choose any one of those to attend, and I chose the one to do with Lost Crypto, because I actually know someone who they have all 24 words, but they messed up in recording the passphrase. Was their way to help get that back. And one of the interesting things I asked when I was there was, do you reckon there'll be almost like an industry that develops out of recovery, like maybe companies who have like massive farms that take the data you have and try and recover your Bitcoin? And there's they unanimously said, yeah, 100%. Like maybe in the next 20 to 30 years, you might have companies that will come out just to recover lost Bitcoin, especially from like old hard drives and old USBs.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's services, for that even right now, but I can see that being increasingly important as it's going to take a while. I mean, if we can imagine a Bitcoin standard, I mean, there has to be some kind of culture around securing your Bitcoin and taking custody of it, and that takes a complete shift in mindset from the fiat world where you're always trusting somebody else. I mean, I'm not saying like I know what the solution to that is, but there's definitely going to be, I think, like a radical shift in culture and how people store and secure their money.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the things that I think we as Bitcoiners or the industry need to definitely work on, and that is, how do you get to the level of storing your Bitcoin where grandma and grandpa can do it? Mm-hmm. Where if anything happens to them, it doesn't get lost in time, and whereby if anyone tries to rob them, it's practically impossible. These are the three things that need to be refined, and it will take time. But inshallah, the more Bitcoin is adopted, the more the need for it is, and the more it will get solved. It's just a technical issue and a user experience issue. It's not something that is impossible. It just requires working on it, really.
Yeah.
From 9:30 to 10:30, we had Bitcoin mining, boom, bust, or recovery as a question. So actually, interestingly enough, there was 2 ladies that were there that were full-on miners. And like, what? We got women who are miners. Because it's unusual to see women in the space on its own. And on top of that, mining, which psychologically is a very man thing to do, a very physical thing to do. So when I saw 2 women there who were actual full-on miners, it was like, That's interesting. I didn't expect that. I was taken back about that one. Although I didn't attend this particular discussion, I attended the other one, which was Bitcoin protocol ossification. So what does that mean? And that was a very technical discussion, and it was basically, has Bitcoin ossified? Ossification means like when something becomes hard, rigid, unchangeable. So Bitcoin was what it was at the beginning, and over time it has been updated and changed and improved. But has it got to the stage now whereby significant updates are no longer, or are there a few more updates left, or should there be a few more? I think it was more of an issue of should there or will there be? It's both. Will there be and should there be? And the one who led the discussion was of the view that there's a lot more work still left to do with Bitcoin, especially to do with privacy and other things, and that we need to push it through now before it becomes impossible to push through. A bit like the internet itself with TCP/IP and whatnot. It's been used for so long, and so much has been built on top of it that now to change it would mean to change too much, and it won't happen.
Right.
So basically, that was the main meat of that discussion: is should it change? Should it happen or should it not happen? And we even discussed Litecoin was there, and it was mentioned. I guess one of the interesting things about that discussion was, are Bitcoiners too cautious? That was the question. Are we too cautious to our detriment? As in, we're trying to secure Bitcoin and prevent anything happening to it, because obviously it's almost $1 trillion market. We want to protect people's wealth, but are we too cautious to the point whereby we can actually damage Bitcoin in the long run? So that was interesting. Another one was, because I've got some notes on this one. Another one which was, we need to eliminate unreasonable objections to change. So sometimes people object to change, and the leader mentioned that, or the leader of the conversation said, point that we need to kind of fine tune as to what kind of objections to change are irrelevant or pointless or that's not irrelevant, unreasonable.
Okay.
You know, it's unreasonable to have those things. And then someone else mentioned, there's another guy who was there who made a very good point. This guy was really good because he was an ETH developer, but he was really genuine, really sincere, really honest. Actually, he all the stuff we moan about Ethereum, he was like 100% agree. I'm not even gonna argue that one. I agree with you, and he's not happy by it either. But it's just that what he's trying to do in build is different from what a Bitcoiner is trying to do. He knows what we're trying to do, save the world, sound money, and he respects that and he agrees with that. It's just that his goal is more niche. So, and when he mentioned he's broke it down, I understood what he was saying, and I respected what he's saying. Basically, you know, it's like saying, yeah, I can see you trying to build a wall, and that wall is necessary, but I'm just trying to plant some daffodils. I'm trying to do something different, and it's fine to do that, you know. But he said, who decides what's unreasonable? And I think that's where the problem we have here. We basically
that's actually what I was going to bring up is, you know, like someone has to decide what's unreasonable and what's not. It could be that whoever is in charge and decides whatever is unreasonable might actually be reasonable. And yeah, that sounds like an interesting topic, an interesting discussion there.
And I think one of the things that I felt was that if Bitcoiners, devs, and so on and so forth could stop all development, just stop everything, stop all code and review everything, just stop it, and just sit down and define the means of, or the medium or the way of conducting discussions. How do you propose proposals? How it should be discussed in a way which is more productive than what seems to be the case now. I'm not sure. I don't really scroll the posts on GitHub, Bitcoin GitHub, but from some of the ways I've seen things discussed on Twitter, sometimes it seems a bit aggressive unnecessarily and counterproductive. Some like that. But I do feel that if you want to move things forward, then there needs to be everyone needs to give another person a chance to talk. Generally, sincerely consider what has to be said, rather than just being dismissive, which I've seen a lot. And sometimes objections are objections, but sometimes they're just unreasonable. That one thing. So another one mentioned was about someone said that Taproot was a very academic feature, meaning that it was a feature that once activated, not much was readily available to use it. It wasn't like, here you go, you can use this new feature. It was like, these are the features that we hope to have in the future, wasn't it? So it was more of an academic upgrade rather than a real life upgrade. Another one was, will ossification kill Bitcoin by others advancing? That was another one. But if Bitcoin becomes fixed, the question was, will that actually kill Bitcoin because others would move forward and others would therefore adopt, but will be adopted because everyone like, okay, I can't do anything on Bitcoin, I have to use another thing. So that was another interesting discussion. Oh, back to the point about they shouldn't be unreasonable. So one of the things I was asked by one of the individuals who actually had their own coin is like, how do you guys update your coin? And I mean, is it as difficult in your system as it is on Bitcoin? And I said, no, not really. And that's because they have a figurehead, and pretty much people rally around the individual. So there's direction, and they kind of go in that direction. Whereas Bitcoin has no figurehead,
Right.
which is a feature, not a bug. Well, yeah, and the ETH guy mentioned an interesting piece of insider info. He mentioned that people think that with Vitalik Buterin, everyone just follows him where he wants to go, wherever he suggests goes, and he said that's not actually the case. There's plenty of times where he wants things to go in a certain direction and he's shut down amongst their own devs. So they do. He's not giving any impression that it's somehow decentralized. He said there are ways in which they organize themselves with hierarchies and whatnot, but it's not just like Vitalik go this way and everyone goes that way. It's actually a bit more nuanced than that. But basically, that was the idea. Was in the discussion, it was discussed how other coins go about it compared to how Bitcoin goes about it. That was part of that discussion. Yeah, that was it, man. The only other thing I mentioned, I wrote down, was that the Bitcoin community kind of rejects VC hype, which is one of the things which is again, it's like a dual paradox where Bitcoin has no hype thing like you have on other coins, but I guess because of that, developing on it is a lot slower. You know what I mean?
Right. But I think that raises a bigger point, especially like when you were talking about that it's like difficult to propose upgrades or whatever, like on Bitcoin. I mean, I think if you're trying to make a sound money that's going to be, globally adopted, like upgrades should be difficult. There should be discussions and fierce debates around things. Like I get that, I'm not like a Bitcoin developer, so like I'm it feels hypocritical for me to talk about. But it to me it seems like for something like Bitcoin, upgrades should be difficult and there should be fierce debates around whether we should be changing this or changing that. But whereas like, you were telling me like about Ethereum, where yes, sure, like Vitalik is not, pulling the strings, maybe, sure. But like at the same time, it's all their upgrades that they're doing, they're tinkering around with the monetary supply. They're tinkering around with so many things that like to where it's not even what it was originally. And to me, money isn't supposed to do that. Like imagine if, in gold, we can just change the supply of gold or change the distribution of how gold is placed on the earth. Like that money isn't or other properties. Like money isn't supposed to do that. And that's what I really, really like about Bitcoin, is that it's like there's 21 million coins. Things like that should not change.
Well, and one interesting point one person mentioned is that there is one hard fork we know we have to make. So that being the case, that by definition, change is still on the table for Bitcoin. So we can still debate things, but there is one hard fork due to a bug which will only affect us in the next 100 years. Has to happen anyway. So there is change that will happen anyway. We just need to get these things over and done with quickly, so that when it does ossify, then we can move on to other layers. So that was that discussion. It was a good one. I don't want to we don't make this one podcast become 5 hours. Let's quickly move on.
Okay.
So that was one discussion. The other discussions I didn't attend was don't be afraid to ask about Africa. That was the title of that one. Another one says hedging risk. I don't know what I was about, but that was what it says. I guess it's an investing kind of discussion. And I'm assuming it might have been full. I don't know. Another one says layer one valuation model and heuristics. So I don't know, like it's a technical kind of thing. This one, I'm not sure what this one was about. It says soul bond tokens and implications for existing and future applications. I'm not sure. I heard of soul bond, I think it is. It has to do with identity on Ethereum, I think, but I don't know. I don't know. The state of crypto and the role of lobbying. That's another one. And I met someone there who that's their job. Their job is to be hired by companies to lobby government to make positive change or change in a direction, or in their direction, I should say. So that's their job, and that's what they do. So I guess that's important. I know there are a few regulators, people in the industry, and that's their job in terms of compliance. There's a lot of people like that who are there, and they give some insights that I came across. And I guess TradFi, relationships with digital assets. So there were a few people there what they wanted to do was get into tokenization. Whenever I hear the word tokenization, I get paranoid. I'm like, tokenization, what do you mean? Stuff with a lot. But what they're talking about is like essentially updating the stocks and investment platforms with tokens rather than the usual platforms we have now. You can have tokens that you can easily trade. I guess streamlining trading of assets. So if you have property, you could tokenize property, tokenize stocks, tokenize equities, tokenize different things. So I think from a technical perspective, there's virtue in updating their system, because you can't say, you know, everything's Bitcoin. This is nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's nothing to do with money. It's just to do with an easy way of trading assets. So I see that. I don't know why a blockchain would be needed for that. I'm sure you can, but I think from their perspective, I think it's to do with the ease of being able to, or the ease of being able to sell your token or whatnot. So imagine you have Apple stocks, and imagine I'm able to actually send my Apple stock to you directly right now. You send me a QR code, and I can just transfer my stocks to that one. I guess that has a benefit and has virtue. I mean, from my perspective, I'm a bit concerned about people robbing you of your Apple stock.
Yeah. I don't know.
Or robbing you. Imagine someone at gunpoint stole the rights to your house. So I've said to them many of these discussions, the problem I have with tokenization is that the token is detached from the asset. Bitcoin is the asset.
Right. It seems like that tokenization discussion is like adding, like everything is so financialized and over leveraged, and it just seems like it's adding another layer to that. And I don't. Do you need a token for that? Is my response to that. Do you need a token for that? And you know, I don't know.
I mean, I agree. You don't need a separate token to do this function. Like you have, for example, you know, you can trade the stock, but you need this token to do the trade. I understand that 100%, and I agree that that's pointless. But if the token that is traded is the actual thing, I can see the purpose of it. I'm just concerned about what it means. I mean, if I have a property, if I own a home, and I have a token of that home, and then someone's able to steal that, I mean, they can't come into my house and take me and kick me out. So what does it mean? Essentially, the tokens are detached from the real world. That's why I say being on a blockchain doesn't make sense. It has, whatever system you use, it has to be a system whereby it's not censorship resistant. It has to by default be censorship resistant. You have to have the ability to undo a transaction, to wipe up, to delete a transaction, to prevent a transaction, to verify that this transaction is actually genuine, not under duress. This has to be in place for real world assets, because, you know, can you imagine someone turn up at your house and get out, it's my house. What do you mean it's your house? Yeah, because I got the token for it. And then I don't know. Anyway, so then the next hour, 10:30 to 11:30, they had advocacy with regulators, the need for layer 1 to engage. That was the topic. Next one, you're gonna love this one. This is your favorite one, brother. NFT and DeFi.
Oh goodness.
Art related. So that was another one. That was there.
Skip.
Another one, which was a good one. Privacy. That was a discussion about privacy. Another one which I spoke to the guy, I think it was leading this one. It was interesting, geezer. Psychedelic rollout. Expand humanity, collective consciousness. What does that mean, innit? So
I have no comment.
What he does, so what you might find in some of these names, some of these things, is that sometimes people have their own individual projects. So they kind of wrap their sales pitch in a discussion. So in this individual, his idea is, which is very interesting, using psychedelic drugs to help deal with trauma or help deal with in therapy. So essentially, with the drug can actually affect the brain in a way that allows you to overcome certain tragic events in your life that would normally take you months to achieve through normal therapy, but you can achieve in shorter sessions because you're actually making physical changes to the brain. So that's what it was.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. And to be honest, it doesn't seem like it's all that relevant.
Well, I don't know how it ties in with Bitcoin or the space, but I spoke to the guy. Definitely the conversation was very interesting. But anyway, that was there. Real world investment on chain. So I guess that's kind of tied in with what we just spoke to a minute ago about the tokenization of assets, real world assets. This one was next one was my one actually, targeting the Muslim market and understanding their needs in Sharia.
There we
So
go.
that point was to the idea is that we have people there who build wallets, build functionality on protocols on Bitcoin, build products for people to use. So the discussion was for people to understand the needs of a quarter of the world's population, like 2 billion Muslims. So you can't ignore them and make products that exclude them, because that's excluding a large market share of your thing. And my idea was to say that if you look at the global demographics, by the next 50 years, that 2 billion Muslims, or a quarter of the world population of Muslim, will eventually outpace everyone else, because the Western world, they're aging and dying out and not replenishing their numbers, and the Muslim nations are breeding like rabbits, as they say. So you have to factor that one in.
Okay.
But unfortunately, brother, I messed up, man.
What happened?
So the map. So if you don't see the map here, it has numbers on the map for locations, and it said that my talk was on track six. So I went to 6 on the map, and then I sat there. No one attended. So I figured, okay, I get it. You know, not everyone here is Muslim. Maybe not that interested. And then a brother came, said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" So I was waiting for my thing, but no one turned up. So, you know, he said, "Oh, come, Bruce wants to speak to you. Bruce wants to speak to you." So I went to speak to Bruce, and basically we sat down and I basically just spoke about this topic with Bruce and his brother, and then 2 other guys came along. We kind of had my discussion on this topic in a smaller group and then when I checked my phone after, when I was going to go to my next talk, someone messaged me saying, "Are you not doing your talk? Or you're not leading the session?" I said, "I was there, no one turned up." And then he replied, said, "There's 10 of us here. What are you talking about?"
Oh man.
What happened was I went to the wrong location. I wasn't in the right place. The number on the map wasn't the same number that they were talking about. So I flopped it, man. I'm like, oh no.
Oh, that
sucks.
That really sucks.
It really did, yeah. But the good news is I still got to discuss this with Bruce. And there's another guy there who's also involved in producing Islamic Sharia compliant products. So I still managed to get some a useful conversation in that space, but unfortunately I missed those who actually wanted to discuss that. So I made an announcement that, you know, I'm sorry I missed it, but in my tomorrow's discussion, whatever I missed in this one, I will bring up in that one. So hopefully I made Toba with that one.
Yeah.
But qaddarallah, you know, things happen. But I'm a person that I don't like regretting the past. I think everything has a purpose, and I think the purpose of that event was to sit down with Bruce and chat with the man.
Alhamdulillah.
Up to that point, I never really sat down and spoke eye to eye, look man in his eye, and tell him the things. So very quickly, venture investment in Bitcoin only startups. That was a very important one. Invest in Bitcoin only startups. Another one of your favorites, Web3 social.
You're killing me, man.
Another one, what makes a token a security token? That was a good one. But I didn't attend anyway. I just had my little discussion on that one. Let's try and speed up, because I'm sure everyone's getting a bit bored now of me going on. So another one, well, maybe bored, maybe not be bored, but another one, building, this is 11:30 to 12:30, building infrastructure to scale Bitcoin. That was another one. I attended this one. And this is another one that Adam back was there. And other players in the field. I will say this, a lot of the more technical maxis are all there. And it was well received. A lot of people there, loads of people there in this one, loads of people there. The discussion was great. We spoke about Lightning Network, how to scale Lightning Network. And I guess the previous discussion of ossification also came up. As in what needs to be done to scale Bitcoin now on the base layer, as opposed to the other ones. Another discussion which became a big one, this one was drive chains. I'm not sure if you've heard of drive chains. Have you heard of drive chains?
I have heard of them, but I do not know what they are.
So in a nutshell, a drive chain is essentially another whole network. Think of it like Ethereum, Litecoin, Ripple, whatever it is. It's a whole new network. But rather than being a network that has its own shitcoin and its own whatever, it's a network that it pegs into Bitcoin. So the tokens in that network come from Bitcoin. So imagine so from that, he basically it's kind of like sold as the holy grail to all of Bitcoin's needs. So you can actually have full on 100% Ethereum, but the tokens used is Bitcoin. So you actually send your Bitcoin onto that chain that you basically peg in to that chain, and when you want to come back out, you peg out of the chain. So you're not in, basically you kind of mitigate the whole shitcoinery. Buy my token, and then you'll go to the moon. So there is no token. So it kind of allows you to experiment and grow and do new things without the need of the crap tokenomic mindset that you might have with shitcoins. So that was pushed heavily by one individual, and to be honest, it's kind of the same as Liquid. You know, Liquid network.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So Liquid network, which is you send your Bitcoin, you peg it in, and you get your Liquid coin. And when you come out, you peg out. The difference between a drive chain and Liquid, however, is that a Liquid network has a federation. So it's slightly decentralized in that manner, that there are people who are in charge of the pegging in and the pegging out. I mean, they try to mitigate the whole centralized decentralization kind of thing by distribution of people, but the point is, it's still, in a way, centralized. Whereas drive chains tries to have the pegging in and pegging out decentralized, so it's not like that. So for example, to peg out takes about 60 days. So it kind of removes the risk, or in their view, it removes the risk of someone stealing it or having that control to steal. If someone tried to steal Bitcoin, there's like 60 days for everyone to realize what they're doing and then punish them. It'd be like lightning. So that was what happened with the drive chains as a discussion.
Okay.
But it was a very interesting discussion, thoughtful discussion. It was emphasized that we need to do something. And one other thing that Adam back mentioned as well, which is interesting about the scaling, we need to figure out scaling. We need to solve the problem. And the problem is that there aren't actually enough UTXOs for the whole of planet Earth to use. And this comes back to the interesting discussion about IP addresses. When they made the internet, they didn't feel that they would ever run out of IP addresses. But we soon realized that we were reaching that limit because no one anticipated the actual scale of adoption. Same thing with Bitcoin. If you can imagine 8 billion people, and each one of those people having millions of addresses all on the scaling you need to do something, basically. Right. So that was where the discussion went to, and there needed to be something done. So Lightning does something. Lightning can do, as in you can have lots of transactions that don't use up the UTXOs. And for those who have been not so technical, UTXO basically means unspent transactions. So each Bitcoin transaction has a unique address. So at some point, even though we have billions and billions and billions of addresses, if every one person uses millions of them, that billion can be used up quite quickly. So just quickly going through the other list of other discussions we had. Centralization in communication, storage systems, and misaligned incentives. Cross-border and last mile challenges and solutions. Another one which is interesting, I'm not sure what it was about, but it's interesting. From Hiroshima, as in a nuclear bomb, to Satoshi, lessons from the nuclear industry. Another one which you always have your favorite topics in this one, man. Future of CeFi and DeFi.
Skip.
Making the human race multiplanetary. And this is an interesting discussion, which I heard a few things, a few murmurs around about how transactions could occur across planets. That was interesting.
Okay.
I would love to have see a lot of these topics. I would love to have attended all of them, but you can't attend all of them, unfortunately.
Right.
The nature and carbon market on chain. Another one, tokenized real world assets. Yeah, tokenized real world assets need decentralized data. And another one, last one, be women in Web3. So you can see a theme here. Almost every hour, you can see a theme where there's a Bitcoin theme, quite clear, and then you have the other theme. It's because anyone who's able to come and pay for their ticket, then they can come, and anyone can suggest a topic to discuss. So it's everyone's free to discuss what they want, and you can't stop anyone. Then there was lunch, and then after that we had charter cities, free private cities, and network states. I'm not sure what that was about, but that was the title. Another one, hardware attack vectors. I think that was a good. Sometimes I was mentioning some people that Bitcoiners need to. It was actually mentioned when I was having dinner actually with Adam back. Someone asked him, do you reckon that Bitcoiners themselves need to start making our own ASIC chips, specifically like open source ASIC chips, to kind of decentralize the making of microchips and make it open source so we can know exactly what's happening in that one. That was an interesting thing. Is in this space, just from this event here, I realized that really and truly, we've got a lot of work to do, man. There's so many different moving parts that need to be moved, just from the developing the network, developing the layer 2s, developing the products, developing the microchips, developing the regulation. There's so much to do. There's so much to do that we need to just quit our jobs and start working on it. There's so much to do. How to scale Bitcoin NFTs. That was a discussion. Importance of user experience, injecting game psyche and dopamine loops. That was an interesting one. I didn't attend that one. This next one I attended because I'm trying to myself develop an online platform where people can buy and sell products using Bitcoin. So this was I thought it would help me. It says money remittance via Bitcoin. So I was thinking, how does that work? So it was interesting discussions about how to. So basically, in the nutshell, what he's saying was, there's one guy who led it. He was saying that the way to scoop around or skate around the regulations with regards to remittance laws is to not even do it in the first place. So how do you get around it? So essentially, he has a platform, which is why indirectly it was a sales pitch, but still the ideas were good. The still ideas are useful. He has a platform whereby you have your company in the UK, I have my company in the UAE. Someone in the UK wants to send money to the UAE. The way you can do that without becoming a money transfer or need a money transfer license is that you in the UK sell the customer Bitcoin, so they transfer their pounds to Bitcoin, and then on your platform that Bitcoin gets sent to the UAE where you want it to go. And so the person who wants to receive it, and then when it gets to that other person in UAE, they convert it back or another sale into dirhams. So because you were the one who sent the Bitcoin and not you as the company, or you as the customer sent the Bitcoin, not you as a company, you don't need a license to send or money transmission license. That makes sense.
Interesting. So it's a way to get around that. Okay.
It's a way to get around it. But the sales pitch came along whereby he was saying, if you want, you can have your company in your country, and we can build a network whereby I will send money to you and you send money to another person and whatnot. So it was kind of a sales pitch, which technically speaking wasn't allowed. I wasn't sure if I should tell Bruce about this because it was useful information, but it was still a sales pitch. But it wasn't a bad sales pitch. I don't know. I'm conflicted. But maybe if Bruce watches this, he will know anyway. But there was a few of that. There was a few that people had their own projects. They made a discussion. The discussion was useful. We learned things, but it was still a sales pitch. So what they would say is that after the discussion, they said, "Yeah, if you want to talk about what I'm doing after, you can talk about it after." So that's how they kind of skirted around the rules. They say, "You want to talk about it, we can do it after." But this guy literally said in it, "I'm here to sell you this." Basically, he even said that. He even got to the point where he was like, got very frustrated. He said, "Yeah, you want to do this? Join me." But interestingly, the one other person who came, I can mention the company because they had literally the T-shirt. I don't know the person's name, but Strike. They were there as well.
Okay.
And they said, "Yeah, this is what we do as well." We all know Strike does the same thing.
Right.
So, but once they realized it was a sales pitch, they actually got up like after 15 minutes and left. So I wasn't that brave. I thought, there's still benefit. Why not get some benefit from the conversation before, rather than walk around into a half-finished conversation. Negative rights via protocols and positive rights through smart contracts is another one. overview and status of Cardano.
Skip.
An overview and the status of Cardano. And without saying anything obvious, there was a significant person from the Cardano team.
I can't imagine who it was.
I can't imagine who it was. No, I can't imagine who it was, but they were there. And there was like a large number of people, of groupies who were, not stuff, I shouldn't call them groupies, of people interested in this conversation who were there. And when I came to the next topic and they were still there and they were still talking, there was like large claps of hands. And I'm like, oh, come on.
Yikes.
Grow up. Grow up. That was one thing I did notice there. I mean, like I said, people who this was an open event, anyone could come. And there was definitely people who were there for financial reasons and gain. So there was like, even when CZ was there when he came, it was like a large number of people like just following like a celebrity status, want to get blessing from the CZ shoulder.
Oh man, that just sounds so creepy and so wrong.
And the joke is, there was like, the Bitcoiners, all the maxes were like looking at them, like shaking our heads, saying, "Come on, man, grow up, man, grow up." Anyway, we almost near to the end of the first day. It's almost near the end. So what was it? Where were we? Yeah, that was, and then there was proof of reserve. That was another topic I attended, and US regulatory pressure. That was another topic. The last hour now, internet to end. The last hour was crypto payments. This is another one I attended. So another one I went to attend. I attended. Yes, I attended this one. This one started as the Cardano one ended, and that's how I told you I knew what was happening at the end. And so I attended this one. I'll talk about this one in a minute. I want to go through the other names first. I'll come back to it. Deposit, insurance, fund exchanges, DeFi, and custodians. Another topic was how to decentralize centralized exchange, which was supposed to be delivered by CZ, but he became late, so there was delayed to after. So therefore, everyone attended that one. Legal future of DAOs, DeFi, CeFi, personal liability, and Wall Street financial stuff. MEVs, mining question Q&A, and open metaverse and interoperability. And what is regenerative finance? Those are the topics, and that was the end of that day. But just as a breakdown of what I attended, which is the crypto payments. This was led by another guy. His job is another token which does the payments, but he did the discussion really well. He's really good in terms of, he's a very people person. He wants to ask the people. He basically, what he's saying was, often when we try to fix problems and fix the world, we don't spend enough time identifying the problem. So he spent a large part of the discussion trying to identify what exactly is the problem we have in this industry. So some said the user experience isn't what it should be. It's not that simple that we need to have. Others said things like the legal system, as in people can't even use their crypto because of the law. The law, there's capital gains and that kind of stuff. That's another issue. Another issue was, I guess you could say, education. That's an obvious one.
Right.
And one guy made a very good point. He stopped the whole conversation and said, look, how many people here paid for their attendance in Bitcoin? And literally 3 or 4 people put their hands up. I said, isn't this a problem? That us Bitcoiners are not paying for this thing in Bitcoin. We're waving the flag, adoption. And in ourselves, we haven't really even adopted it.
Right.
That should be that. This should be everyone's hands should be up.
Right.
Or at least the majority of the hands should have been up. But the fact that a minority of the hands of people was up kind of indicates the problem as well. There's not enough actual. It's basically what he's saying is a lot of lip service. We're calling others to do something that we're not even doing ourselves as the collective. So that was an interesting topic. One of my contributions, I was saying that I think that we need to look at the approach from another perspective, as in we want merchants to adopt Bitcoin and start receiving payments in Bitcoin, but the merchant is kind of forced into a system of having to sell that Bitcoin to pay his bills, to buy his coffee beans if he's a coffee shop. Everything behind him is still fiat, but yet we're still given a face and a facade that he's accepting Bitcoin. We need to start targeting suppliers, people who sell product to companies and provide infrastructure to business, that they accept Bitcoin, so that therefore when people actually provide the products and services, when they receive Bitcoin, they can now pass that on and pay for what they need in Bitcoin. Basically, a more higher approach of adoption. It's not just the merchant is accepting it, the merchant's liabilities also need to be in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very important point that need to be said. Because even
Yeah.
myself, I have my
Yeah.
own business. That's not a problem I have. I have staff who I say, yeah, I'll pay you in Bitcoin, but then they think, okay, I've received, but I need to pay my bills. So there's that problem.
I think that kind of goes in line with the education problem as well. I think, you know, what I think is more important is that a lot of merchants and businesses, you know, I feel like there's too much focus on trying to accept payment in like Bitcoin, for instance, and there should be more focus on actually saving in Bitcoin, like actually having some of your reserves. Because, you know, if you're a business, you have to have like, you know, you have to make a profit, and then you have to store some of it to kind of grow the business. Like
Yeah.
I think there needs to be a shift in culture where businesses and merchants not just accept Bitcoin, but also like keep Bitcoin in their savings so that they can kind
On
of
the
grow
balance
their
sheet, yeah.
business. Yeah, on their
Yeah.
balance sheet. Yeah, and I think not to say that like they shouldn't accept payments in Bitcoin. I think that's also great, but I think with that they also kind of have to realize that like, hey, this Bitcoin thing is the money. This is the thing that I want to hold on to in the long run so that I can grow my business in the long run as well.
Yeah, definitely. And even things like when you accept payments, some of that payments goes towards your liabilities, but some of it should remain in Bitcoin as you grow your stash so that you can grow your, as in basically think of not just growing your business by getting more customers, but growing your business by growing your stash that gives you more ability to do more things.
Right.
So that's a new strategy. As in, think of it this way: that idea doesn't even exist in fiat world. No one thinks of growing your savings stash so that your saving can grow. It's the opposite. Your saving erodes. Hence why you don't do that. You put your fiat in something else, like in a bond or treasury, or you start. That's how you grow your wealth in fiat, not actually by holding fiat, because fiat dies. Whereas Bitcoin allows you to actually receive payment, and just that receiving is already growing.
Right. Exactly.
As long as your time frame is long enough. Anyway, so to
Yeah.
conclude this part two,
Hmm.
after all these talks were finished, they had CZ came a bit later to do his talk about how to centralize exchanges. And it basically was a lot of talk about what he was basically asking us what can be done to decentralize, and he would kind of give his take as to the difficulties in how doing that. And I mean, he agrees it needs to happen. And I guess one of his main themes is that people have said to him, wouldn't you, by decentralizing your exchange, eat away your own profits? And he's basically saying, yeah, but that's part of life. You have to move forward and adopt what's coming. Kodak didn't adopt digital cameras and died as a result of it. So he knows the writings on the wall for centralized exchanges. So he wants to get ahead of the curve and basically try to decentralize an exchange and be a part of that future rather than trying to hold on to the past. And one of the Bitcoiners asked a very important question about when are you going to adopt Lightning as a
Yes.
withdrawal? And the answer was he didn't really answer that question, but he kind of skirted around the answer in a kind of political manner, but not in a bad way. He still answered some of the question, but he skirted around it. And essentially said, look, he as an individual invests in many different things. He's not actually building things himself. And the actual technical, we're privy to all of the details. But obviously, they as a company try to do the best to do what they can.
Hmm.
But, I mean, me personally, my personal opinion about CZ, which means nothing really. I mean, who might have an opinion? But my personal opinion is that I kind of like the guy in the sense of I see him as a genuine person trying to do genuine things. Yeah, I'm sure he wants to make money. I'm sure he has interest in becoming, sustaining his business model by maintaining and sustaining his casino of shitcoins. I see that, but I also see that he's not. He also recognizes that Bitcoin is the future still. On top of that, and I do feel like they potentially could be a net positive in Binance existing. I know there are some who say no, Binance is basically a casino. We need to shed the market from these kind of things. But I think it's one of those unfortunate realities that as much as a lot of his network has shitcoins on it, there's still a lot of things that people use it for that they need it for. Like myself, I mean, I have on my card, my Visa debit card, I load up Bitcoin I spend on. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people who use this platform to live because it has the most volume and whatnot. So, But as Adam Back mentioned, is that technically, he mentioned very clearly, and I 100% agree, is that a lot of these people, they make loads of money from Bitcoin, but they don't really put money back into developing Bitcoin with that as they should. Everyone's developing this coin and that coin and Cardano and Ethereum and this DeFi and that DeFi and they're pumping billions into these shit coins. And they're not putting anything into the devs of Bitcoin, which is the asl. That is the foundation of the whole market. If they're going to put like 10% of their wealth into these projects, they should put 20 into Bitcoin.
Right.
To be honest, considering how significant Bitcoin is as an industry. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know this has been a long one, and we can wrap this one up, inshallah. Unless you have anything you want to add or ask.
No, I think it's great. Thank you for sharing everything that happened on there. And man, I kind of feel bad because I was invited to come actually, and I told Bruce about you, and you ended up going instead of me. So you're making me feel kind of bad because it sounds like it was as even though there was quite a lot of talk about shitcoins and stuff, it sounds like there was quite a lot of content that was focused on Bitcoin only, and it sounds like there was a lot of productive conversation and discussion going on just about a Bitcoin only perspective. And it's unfortunate that, you know, your talk was sort of missed. But I think a lot of those discussions need to be had. And you know, you brought up one good point about like how there's still so much that needs to be done on building on Bitcoin. And that's what I think that makes it so interesting and amazing. Like people are like, oh, Bitcoin is just this old coin that doesn't do anything. It's like, no, there's so much development and stuff going on in the Bitcoin world, and there's so much that needs to be done. There's so many problems that need to be fixed. And that to me makes Bitcoin fun and interesting. And I think a lot of people that kind of get into crypto don't really understand that point because they're so obsessed with the new shiny coin that might just have the chance of being the next Bitcoin. But
they're primarily just a distraction to us as well. A lot of these coins and tokens.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, to me, Bitcoin is like that is the signal, and it's unfortunate that's in a sea of all of this noise, and it's kind of hard to figure out that signal among all that noise. But yeah, thank you for sharing all of those details. It was actually really interesting. I really enjoyed it.
And I guess as a bonus content, so the dinner evening on the Saturday night was an Indian theme. So yesterday was an Arab theme. This one was Indian theme, and I sat down with some Bitcoiners, and alhamdulillah, I was privileged to have a seat with Adam. Had dinner with Adam, so I had lots of conversation, discussions about different things on that table, and there was another individuals on the table as well who we spoke about different things about how they got into Bitcoin, how they even met Craig Wright even.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
And I asked them, is he right in the head even? I mean, seriously, I've seen the guy. Is he right in the head? And they said, no. They met the guy and they don't think he's right in the head at all, and they're convinced that there's something not clear. Wow. But yeah, it was like I said, the conversation was amazing. What I learned was so much. And I think if I was to summarize what the most significant, if I was to pinpoint one of the most significant things I learned from just the first day even, was that the people who are building in this space are sincere people. As in, they are people trying to make change in the world. They're not trying to fill their bags. You know, making money is a byproduct, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is changing the world through Bitcoin. No doubt there are shitcoins that are out there, and all they're interested is making money. But the fact that all the discussions we had, making money wasn't even a part of the discussion, that's significant for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like it wasn't even a part of the discussion from even in passing. It wasn't like the price action wasn't even mentioned, it wasn't even talked about, it wasn't anything like that. It was refreshing. It was refreshing, man. It was great.
That's great, because the price of Bitcoin is probably the most uninteresting thing about Bitcoin to me. But
yeah, it was a great one. It was a great one, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. This was really great, and I look forward to hearing more, inshallah. Thank you so much.